Hello and welcome. I am Tony Jacobson, the author of Disable Your Disability and the creator of this OILife YouTube channel. In this OILife Spotlight interview, I got to sit down and speak with the one and only Rick Howland. He is a stage, a TV, and film actor and fellow O.I.er. So we're going to go ahead and open the curtain on his interview. Here we go. Hey Rick, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining me today and everybody here on the OILife channel. We're going to jump right into it and we're going to get to the specifics of who Rick Howland is. But before we get into that, I do want to tell you a funny story. I was out and about one day, probably last year, or maybe 2 years ago at some point, and I was at a store just kind of looking around and things, and the lady that worked there, she came up to me and she said, "Hey, are you that guy on that show?" And I, of course, when that happens, you go, "Well, what show are you talking about?" If you know, I didn't know what she was speaking of, and she didn't remember the name of the show. She said, "Oh, you know, that sci-fi show, something like that." And then and I'm like, "No, that's not me. I haven't been on a show." And then she comes back a little bit later. She's go, "Oh, are you Rick Howland?" So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy." So I've been recognized as you out in the world.
Well, all of us O.I.ers look the same.
It is so funny because, there's, I'm going to be interviewing some other O.I.ers, and all of us have different severities and different looks, but there are some of us, that have kind of similar types and things that do look similar because of our height and just, our structures, the way that we
totally.
built. And so it is very interesting. I know a couple of people that I'm going to talk to in the other interviews, they have that same thing where they're like, "Oh, I get recognized as this person all the time or that person all the time." So yeah, I just wanted to share that story with you. You and I are interchangeable.
Apparently. Yeah, no. And which means that you're also interchangeable with the guy from Twin Peaks. Because
exactly.
I get that a lot. Like I was at my mechanics getting an oil change and a car drove by, and out of the car came Twin Peaks, and so I've been confused as Michael J. Anderson. I think it's Michael J. Anderson. I think that's his name. But yeah. So it
happens.
It happens. I mean, I think it's like there's like a shape to the head. There's a shape to the chest. There's something about the gait. And for those of us who haven't done physiotherapy, the gait is like how you walk. That is quite similar. And then there's the blue tint to the white sclera of your eyes, which is.
Yeah. Do you have? Because for me, like my trunk's short, and then my arms are like much longer than just in comparison and in relation to my body. Do you have that same thing?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when I was, I don't know, 8 or 9, I had like an accident or whatever, a playing around kind of thing, and hurt my lower back. And it seemed to then cause, like later on, when I was about 14, 15, back compression issues where, grade 9, grade 10, it's a great time to be wearing a corset to keep your back straight. But they didn't want to, they didn't want to operate. So they wanted to do it as naturally as possible and let the lower vertebrae fuse. And so they did. And so that's definitely shorter in the trunk, longer in the legs, which is like bizarre because that's where most of the breaks happen. And then long arms and, average sized hands and,
Well, let's get into, the OI stats. I call them the Fabulous Four. Because I like to think of them as something that's positive that we all can share and like kind of just run down those stats. So let's run through them for you. You tell me your type, if you know it, because some people don't. Tell me your type, the number of breaks that you've had, number of surgeries that you've had, and then also any sort of hardware or anything in you. Let's run down the stats.
Okay. So type. I think it's type 1, although I have never been genetically tested for that. I'm old, so they didn't have the genetic testing back when I was born. However, there was a doctor in the hospital that was very familiar with OI and was able to look into my eyes and say, "Oh, he's got the blue tint to the white sclera. He's clearly got OI." And the number of breaks, we lost count over after 80. My mom and I always said over 80 broken bones. And, that's since I was a kid. I haven't really had a broken bone in quite a long time, knock on wood, knock on all the wood. Surgeries, I think about 9. And in terms of hardware that goes along with the surgeries, pins in both femurs, in and out and in again. And then when I broke the femoral head of the femur, if that's the hip socket, broke it right here. And they had to take that pin out and put a plate in that bolted into the head of the femur. Fortunately, I didn't rupture that artery that feeds blood to the legs. But they replaced that. Then I broke that at the bottom of that one because it was only halfway down the bone. So then they put in a longer one, and then in 2004 that hip gave out, and I had it replaced. And they took out what was the plate, although they actually didn't take it entirely out. They cut off the top of it, replaced the top with the artificial hip, and left the bottom of the plate in and with a couple of screws, and there's some wires that go around the femur, the thigh bone, to hold that bottom of the plate in place. And then on the top is the hip replacement. And then the other leg still has a pin from, 1970 something.
From when they first made pins, right?
Yeah,
when they first made the rods, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? You go in and they're like, "Okay, so we want to do an MRI," and I'm like, "No, I don't know what the steel is in my body. I don't want it ripped out by the magnetic resonance. Like that just sounds. I don't want it heating up and exploding, and I don't want it being yanked out of my bones. Period." So.
Exactly. Well, wow, that sounds pretty extensive. It would be interesting to see your X-rays.
I could.
Yeah, if you can go ahead and get those and send them over, I can throw them in as B-roll over the interview. That'll be awesome.
I'll send you the one with the happy face around the important parts.
Exactly. That's great. Yeah, I mean that's we're pretty similar. We're pretty similar as far as breaks and surgeries. I don't have as much hardware, but I have hardware, but not as extensive, like just rods. I got rods down both femurs and both tibias that have been replaced out and whatnot, but no extra stuff, because I never broke femurs that way. Mine were always in the middle somewhere, clean, so that's good. But
there was only that one where it was the bowing, the bowing of the femur, because it takes all the weight.
Yeah.
The bowing of the femur kept stretching to the point where it was just like, it's not able to hold. Now, when I did break it, my mom was babysitting other kids, and this little boy was actually running down our lawn toward the street. And so I was outside kind of minding him, and I was very strong at that point. And so I ran after him and grabbed him, and I believe I tripped over kind of a root coming out of the tree on the lawn, and I caught him just before a car went by, and that's when I fell, and I actually broke that spot.
Wow.
So, it was for a good cause.
Yeah, exactly.
When you can save a child's life.
Yeah.
Breaking a bone
to be a hero, that's fine.
It's something else.
That's all part of it. But we've broken just for no reason too, I mean, that's another thing where you just kind of step wrong and, something happens. But that's OI for you. That's what we deal with. How has OI impacted your life, like in a negative way?
Well, I would have to say it's the amount of pain. the randomness of the disability, where, like I was saying, out playing and stuff, and like, you can jump off a curb and it's fine, and then the next day you twist a little funny and something breaks, and you're like, what? So, and the many years of kind of being out of school because of it. Now, I had tutors and things, but they didn't necessarily tutor absolutely every class that you were to be attending if you were in school. So there was a lot of that I think I missed the socialization. But again, my parents weren't overly cautious, so I managed to socialize well, I hope. Yeah, I mean, I guess the randomness of it is really what's kind of like the biggest thing. I mean, also, once you get labeled kind of disabled, and it's kind of obvious, it's a visible disability. The institutions and the people in power of institutions. When I say institutions, I mean like things like universities and schools and buildings, and that just aren't accessible, or they certainly are capable of throwing up discouraging roadblocks that you have to then fight for your position when that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
You should not be made to feel less than because of something that is completely beyond your control, and something that you've always dealt with and are able to understand your own limitations. Like when you get to the level of, or the age of like university, you're fully aware of what you're capable of and what your body is capable of and your limitations. And quite frankly, no one else has any right to say what you can and cannot do. And, that's very discouraging. I mean, even in high school, it's like I was walking across a public school to get to a bus stop to go home from an exam, and I slipped on the snow and ice and broke a leg. And they picked me up out of the wet puddle and took me into the office and called my mom, and off I went to the hospital. And I remember the janitor coming in looking so sorry that he didn't salt the playground that morning, and to please not sue him. And like, I grew up in Canada. Mm-hmm. People don't sue people in Canada like they do in the US.
Right.
And and like that had never, that wasn't a go-to for me. That would never cross my mind to blame someone else for a broken bone. It's life. It's part of my life.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the disability, having the disability, because like us with disabilities, we've broken just in most random places like you're talking about. We don't necessarily think in those terms. I think the outside world, the people that are dealing with it, like that janitor, they only deal with people that, like, for lack of a better term, normal, that don't have disabilities. People that don't have disabilities would tend to maybe say that, oh, well, I'm going to sue you because this happened to me, because they're not used to like injuring themselves, being in that predicament, having that situation, so they kind of tend to that, well, it's their fault, whereas we with disability, and we, especially us O.I.ers, where we know we break bones like frequently or whatever, so it's like no big deal. We're going to just go through it, and it's nobody's fault, it's my fault. We would usually blame ourselves, right? So I think that's a weird tendency with the difference between having a disability and not, and trying to educate those that don't have the disability, kind of what we're thinking and what we're feeling from our side, like you're saying, to where that thought of suing him didn't even come into your brain.
No. I mean, even if it happened in university, when I got accepted into university, I was having that whatever acceptance interview or whatever it is, the pre-interview kind of thing, because it's an acting school. And the guy had this like Post-it note, and he'd just written on it, just sign this, because it said, I will not sue the school if I hurt myself in any classes.
Oh my God.
And it was like,
Yeah.
it was such a punch in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And it just ended up, because it wasn't even like, it's not like they thought through it and they had a lawyer write something up, or it was like, oh, everyone signs this.
Right.
So it was like, no, I happened to be speaking to another prof, and they said, oh, you should get something on paper from this kid because we don't want any trouble.
Right, you never know,
like,
right.
Okay, you know what? This is already stacked against me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm already at a negative here. I'm already starting from -5, where everyone else is starting at +2. And so it's like,
Yeah, having to deal with that is
I'm
definitely...
bleeping myself here from swearing. I'm like,
It's like, son of a, yeah.
yeah. Like, I mean,
It's definitely a thing. I mean,
what
I hear you, and it's that's part of the negative aspects of this, and I think it is specific to OI as far as like breaking. Other disabilities, I don't know what they may go through with what they face. I know for us with OI, that is a thing. It's like, broken bones. It's a traumatic situation. It's very specific to what we go through when we have to, when we do go through a break, and what we have to kind of navigate when that does happen. So that does bring a lot of negativity is around those situations. Yeah, I totally feel you on these negative aspects that you've experienced, that we've all experienced. But now we're going to shift, because this video is about bringing some light and positivity to OI. So I want to know how has OI impacted your life in a positive way?
I got to say, I think empathy. It's made me more empathetic, considerate, and I think it's certainly had an impact on me in terms of being able to see other people's perspective. And so I would say the biggest one is empathy.
Yeah. That's very true. I agree. I think we have a definite sense of empathy.
Yeah. Even with the last year as a lockdown scenario for everybody, it's like my wife and I both are like, okay, able-bodied people, deal with it. Deal with it. We are locked down, but this is exactly what disabled people experience all the time.
Yeah, we can talk about all of the months that we've had to lay around, locked up in a cast and in bed, not being able to move or go outside for many, many, many weeks days, months. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, buck up, little buckaroo. You're going to make it through. The human condition, we can survive a lot.
Yeah. And definitely with what you've, gone through in your life as far as your career, you're an actor, and you've done so much in that world. And we appreciate everything that you've been doing out there in the world as far as acting is concerned. And, I want to know really, because when it comes to career, when it comes to industries and things of that nature and working, OI, and there's always something involved there. So I want you to talk a little bit about that and tell us, how has OI affected your career as an actor specifically?
Well, yeah, I kind of almost always say, it's like, I don't do my own stunts. Like there's all these actors who are like, I do my own stunts. I'll ride horseback and a motorcycle and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, these feet, they stay on the ground. Nobody lifts me up. Nobody's throwing me nowhere. Sorry, not happening. It's interesting, it's like for the good portion of my early career, I didn't come out as disabled, or as somebody with OI as like a thing. It was, I in fact kind of tried to, avoid it as much as possible in terms of the conversations with casting or acting or whatever. If they were looking for somebody who was different, and I got called in, then you go in and you do your best job as the character, as an actor, and hopefully they hire you, and that's the difference that you bring to the camera or to the character is something that they find appealing, and they want that. So for a good portion of my career, it wasn't something that it was like. It was the opposite of of being open about it. But just clarifying that I don't do my own stunts, and every once in a while would have to ask something in terms of a concession or whatever.
Right.
That being said, it's interesting actually. This friend of mine at the time, years ago, still a friend on Facebook, friend on Instagram, all that. Andrew Tarbett. We were walking down the street one day, and I was bemoaning my situation in terms of like only getting cast in commercials as an elf. And he said, "Dude, right now, if somebody paid me to put on an elf outfit, I would jump at it, because I just want to work. I just want to act."
Yeah.
And it really stuck with me in terms of complaining about anything like that. Now, that being said, I like to say that I've worn more green felt than a pool hall in New York City.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting, but you've been able to kind of break that and play some roles that are significant. Your big show is what's the name of the show?
Lost Girl.
Lost Girl. That was on the Sci-Fi Network. Is it still going, or?
It was on Sci-Fi Network. Right now, it's on CW Seed.
Okay.
CW Seed, which is like a streaming service for CW. It was on Netflix for a good period of time, which made the fans very happy because they could binge watch it over and over again, which many of them do.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. It was everywhere. Like, I mean, I'd get recognized everywhere. It was great.
And how do you feel how do you feel your character on that show has been able to, kind of be that character that it was not about your disability at all. It's just about being, maybe just having that different look, right?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I hope it's okay with Jay that I'm telling this story, but the producer who cast me had said to me, like, it had been written somewhere in the original Bible or, character, kind of as they were kind of designing the character or thinking up the character or whatever. And I remember reading it, that Trick jumped up on the bar and walked up and down the bar on the bar to address the crowd. And so in the larger scheme of things, that kind of settled in the minds of some of the people, some of the decision makers. And but Jay fought for me because he was like, "No, this is the best actor for this role. He brings what I was looking for in this role." And so, and then when we talked about it, I was like, "Well, do you remember Linda Hunt? She was in a Western, and they had built like a level up behind the bar. So when she was behind the bar serving drinks, she looked completely average height across from, the tall drink of water cowboy. Right. And then when she came around the bar, she was significantly shorter, which gave it in that movie. She had built such a powerful presence before she came around the bar that it was like, whoa, you don't mess with her. Her size actually became an emblem of strength.
Right.
And I think I imparted that to the powers that be, and they liked that. And the crew did everything they could to make that happen. And I was always on a little bit of a riser when I was behind the bar, so that it looked natural. It wasn't like, "Can I get you a drink?"
Right,
Like,
right, yeah.
come on, he's the Blood King. He's like powerful. He's like, are you kidding me? And this world, his bar and his home, were things that were built by him for him.
So
So
why wouldn't they be the right size?
they would be perfectly accommodating to him,
Yeah, yeah.
not to, you know, Dyson, Chris Holden Reed, who is a very tall, handsome, powerful, strong man, and who also but treated me like, a brother. I mean, we had such a great relationship. I mean, I had a great relationship with everybody. That cast, that crew, it was magical. The production was very cool. About the disability was secondary. That it was not even addressed. I mean, Trick doesn't have OI. He was just this. He was the king. He was the most powerful Fae, and it was my whatever experience, my what I brought to the role that they thought translated well in terms of the gravitas or the presence that the trick required. So
Yeah.
really early on, I read an acting book like in the first year that took acting in high school, and it was like instant with acting for me. It was the very first acting class I ever had. They had us do an exercise where you throw a ball out the window and watch it bounce down the street. And I was made the example of in my class. And in that moment, I noticed two things. I learned two things. One, what it's like to close your eyes and envision that space that you're in and actually be there in your mind. And then when I had to do it again in front of the class with everyone watching me, how to then recall what that feeling was and what that space looked like, and then reenact what you physically did from that first experience, to give the same performance. And also the other part that I learned was that all of a sudden everyone was looking at me, and it was with respect, and it was with something that was a positive, and not a negative where it's like, you're different. Why are you different? What's
Right.
different about you? And it was this like epiphany or something, where it was like, I can have people see me in a positive light, and I can change it for the next little kid, that they don't have to walk into a shopping mall and be stared at and questioned. And if I can change perception, then I can make a difference in this world. And I think that's why I became an actor.
That's awesome. I love it. So I just want to finish with this question and just finish this sentence for us. OI to me is
A plug-in. It's an add-on. It's I don't want to say it's malware, but to use technical, new technology terms, but it's a plug-in. It's an add-on. It's a bit of programming that is there, that doesn't change the entire mechanism that is you, but it is something that is is part of it, and does inform and change the entire mechanism. But that's why I want to say malware, because it's not necessarily negative. It doesn't have to be. It's all about our outlook on it.
Love it. That's brilliant. I love that analogy. I would agree. It's not malware. It's definitely a plugin, though, that we have to work with as opposed to working against.
Yeah.
So that's very powerful. Thank you so much for taking this time to be part of the OILife channel, and during OI Awareness Week and Wishbone Day. It's an important week for us as O.I.ers to get this, kind of message out. I always like to say we're spreading the awareness, we're gaining acceptance, and we're sharing the awesomeness that is OI. And,
absolutely.
You definitely are an example of the awesomeness that is OI, and we appreciate you. And keep doing what you're doing. And we're going to definitely have to have you back on, because there's a lot that we can get into and talk about.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's so many things. I'll bring my soapbox.
Thank you so much, Rick, for being with us today. And we will be looking out for more from the incredible Rick Howland.
Right on. Thanks, Tony.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure you check out some other Spotlight interviews right there. And also, there's a ton of OI-related content here on the channel. So make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell icon so you'll get notified every single time a new video goes up. Until next time, get out there and keep breaking barriers, not bones.